The issue of drugs, specifically fentanyl, crossing from Canada into the United States has been front and center in the looming trade war with the Trump administration. And one of the proposed solutions to the problem is a fentanyl czar, which was first proposed by Alberta Premier Danielle Smith on January 29th.
In just the next couple of days, to have the best chance to avoid tariffs is to show clear and unequivocal action to secure the border. This should start with the appointment of a Canadian border czar to work with the new American border czar to jointly crack down hard on fentanyl and illegal migrants. Is this likely to end the threat of tariffs entirely? I don't think so. I think there'll be other things that we will need to work on, and we will do so. But I am convinced, after speaking with dozens of elected U.S. representatives, administration officials, and the president himself, that this is the most important first step.
And after it was announced that Ottawa would in fact appoint a fentanyl czar, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said last week that Canada needs to stop dilly-dallying and name one.
My question again to Prime Minister Trudeau, where is the fentanyl czar? It's been now 5 days, I believe, and time is running out. We can't be waiting till the last minute. Please appoint a fentanyl czar. Start showing the Americans what we are doing. Show the Trump administration that we have helicopters and fixed wing aircraft and boots on the ground and boats in the water and ATVs up and down. That's what Ontario is doing. But we need to see action from the federal government.
Mr. Ford suggested that retired General Rick Hillier could do the job, calling him a patriot, while reporting from the Globe and Mail has suggested that it could be retired General Wayne Eyre.
We at the Globe are reporting, this is through my colleagues in the Ottawa Bureau, we're reporting a few different names. At this point, we're hearing about retired General Wayne Eyre, the former chief of the defense staff, as a potential choice, but we are also reporting that no decisions have been made. At this point, that's likely because, again, there are no real sort of good ways to go about this, right? At this point, I think a lot of people, there's going to be, whoever this person is hired for this, they're going to have to, really be the person that we convince Mr. Trump is the right person for this. And that's a lot, it's convincing an entire, White House administration that's hell-bent on imposing tariffs if we don't convince them. And they could go in every different way, as we've seen over the course of the last few days. So it's a lot of responsibility on this one person.
And while there appears to be an agreement that something needs to be done to tackle the problem of fentanyl, there is a growing debate on the size and scope of the problem. We're going to bring in Sam Cooper from the Bureau for more on the problem. Sam, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Now, we know that Ottawa has highlighted at several points that fentanyl is a problem, but that the amount of fentanyl flowing into the U.S. from Canada is minuscule in comparison to the U.S. border with Mexico. What do you make of that claim?
I think it's a claim that focuses on a not very important data point. Look, the facts are in Canadian criminal intelligence reports that Canada has become a fentanyl export nation. That means that fentanyl precursors are coming into especially British Columbia, and data shows they're flowing out around the world. So to focus on 40 kilograms at the northern border with the United States, I think is misdirection. I'll give you a few more data points. I have reported in my book, Willful Blindness, that a business person connected to the highest levels of Asian organized crime that were found to be laundering billions of dollars through British Columbia casinos. This man was caught by the RCMP with 85 tons of precursors for meth, amphetamine, and fentanyl. If those were pressed up into pills, that's enough to kill a lot of people. Another data point, over 1,000 kilograms of fentanyl precursors were caught by the CBSA in Vancouver's port in 2022. Again, that's an industrial scale load. Another figure here, as we know, RCMP, and I know, based on a DEA investigation, caught a so-called super lab in northern British Columbia. The RCMP at a press conference said that they knew 95 million pills was the capacity there, and they confirmed a large load was going out to an unidentified country. All of these facts show that I believe the American government is right. Canada has become a major vulnerability in global fentanyl trafficking, and it's not just the United States that is suffering the impacts of that. It's Australia, Japan, and other allies.
Now, you've mentioned that the figures quoted by Ottawa are just the seizures, but how exactly are we screening for fentanyl at our borders and at our ports?
It's confirmed in the Vancouver port, which is subject of essentially the justification or warning from the Trump administration, that officials locally in Vancouver say that only 0.5 of 1% of the containers coming into the Delta port in Vancouver, that's one of the four largest ports in North America,
Mhm.
a minuscule amount of containers are actually searched. And so my reporting, talking to people that can talk off the record, say the Delta police chief and mayor are exactly right. The organized crime is having a field day, essentially an open window into Canada's western province. And as my own exclusive reporting has shown, especially Asian organized crime at the highest levels has infiltrated Vancouver's port in the same way that they are infiltrating the west coast of Mexico and ports in Panama. And the common thread there is British Columbia, just like Panama and Mexico, is seen rightly by the US government and the US military as a major vulnerable point in fentanyl importation and exportation.
Now, I want to piggyback a little bit off of what you said about the fact that Canada does have a problem. So I'm curious, why would Canada or Ottawa wait until Donald Trump decided to threaten tariffs to actually decide to do something about what's happening at the border, what's happening at our ports?
That's a great question. That's the question that may determine Canada's sovereignty, I'm very sorry to say. Look, my book, Willful Blindness, and my reporting at the Bureau indicates that Canada's government, for a long time, but most especially the present current federal government, has discounted cracking down on foreign interference. And my reporting indicates foreign interference from nations including China and Iran is directly connected to the leveraging of organized crime. And so, if you're not cracking down on organized crime, and Canada has notoriously weak laws around the lack of ability to prosecute money laundering and transnational organized crime, that's going to create a vulnerability that will be of interest not only to Washington, but to Canberra, London, even in New Zealand, France, Europe. Other nations are worried about our lack of capacity.
Now, there have been some pretty high profile busts in Alberta and BC, but who exactly is funding and profiting off of these operations?
I can say with confidence that although the RCMP haven't come out clearly and said it, the British Columbia Super Lab, again in Falkland, BC, a small mountainous town with perhaps only one or two local police officers, this is said to be the largest known lab in the world. And my sources indicate that Chinese organized crime at the highest levels and Mexican cartels would be directly involved in the running of that lab on Canadian soil. In other words, the most powerful, brutal, and profitable international organized crime with direct connections of corruption to their home states are using British Columbia. And again, this is what the concern is of the federal government in the United States. And I'll add that my sources in the US and Canada do indicate that Iranian state sponsored crime at a high level would also be involved in these labs in Western Canada. Finally, it's known by Canada's government and the United States government that the highest level of Asian triads are using Western Canada for lab production. And not only that, they're using Toronto and Vancouver for money laundering at scale that facilitates this whole operation.
I want to go back and talk about the fentanyl czar position that Canada is looking to fill. Now, a few names have been thrown around for who they think the best fit could be, even though no one has yet been appointed to this position. But I'm curious, is this Canada just putting a band-aid on a bullet hole, or do you think that there will be some benefit for having this new position?
I do think there's a strong benefit for having that position. The US government is not stupid. They know the people that would be credible. I believe we even heard Premier Smith say it needs to be a credible
Mhm.
nominee. And what the czar would do would be to bring together American law enforcement and Canadian law enforcement. Remember, a co-country strike force against organized crime is another part of the deal that is supposed to happen to avert these tariffs. And so the czar, a credible czar, whether a former general, whether I've pointed to a mayor in British Columbia, which the American government has already reached out to in a trilateral meeting between mayors in Mexico, United States, and Canada. That's Mayor Brad West. There are also high-level former RCMP officers that could fulfill that role. So my message here is if the Canadian government is dilly-dallying with this role, they're welcoming the tariffs to hit us.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for the time today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.